The divorce papers lay on the kitchen counter like a guillotine, the ink still fresh, slicing through 3 years of lies. Elena Martinez stared at them, her heart a battlefield of rage and grief, the silence of her Brooklyn apartment deafening. She'd given Caleb Reed everything: her trust, her dreams, her pride, only to find he'd married her for a green card, a stepping stone to his American dream. Elena's fingers trembled as she poured herself a glass of wine, the crimson liquid swirling like the memories she couldn't escape. It was 2023, and New York City thrummed outside her window, alive with ambition and heartbreak. She'd met Caleb at a Manhattan gala, his easy charm and warm brown eyes disarming her. He was a British expat, a photographer with a knack for capturing raw emotion, and she was a rising star in tech, a Latina coder from the Bronx who'd clawed her way to a corner office. Their whirlwind romance felt like fate until she found the emails. Once the citizenship secured, "I'm out," he'd written to a friend. "She's sweet, but this is business." The betrayal gutted her, but Elena wasn't one to crumble. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where survival meant outsmarting the odds, and Caleb had underestimated her. She sipped her wine, her mind already spinning a plan not for revenge, but for justice. He'd used her. Now she'd make him see what he'd lost. The next morning, Elena walked into her office at Quantum Labs, a sleek startup in Dumbo. Her team buzzed around her, coding algorithms that predicted consumer behavior with eerie precision. But today, her focus wasn't on the next app launch. It was on Caleb. She discovered his new projective photography exhibit in Soho, his big break. He was banking on it to cement his name in the art world, and she knew exactly how to turn his spotlight into her stage. Elena's best friend, Zara Patel, leaned against her desk, her sharp wit cutting through the morning haze. "You're not seriously going after him, are you?" Zara asked, her dark eyes narrowing. "He's not worth it." "He's not," Elena agreed, her voice steady. "But I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing it for me." Zara raised an eyebrow. "What's the play, then?" Elena smirked, pulling up a file on her laptop. It was a dossier on Caleb's exhibit sponsors, guest list, media coverage. "He thinks he's free and clear, building his empire on my back. I'm going to show up at his big night and remind him who I am." Over the next week, Elena worked with surgical precision. She reached out to a contact at the gallery, a queer artist named Jamie Chun, who owed her a favor. Jamie was skeptical but intrigued. "You want to crash his show?" "That's bold, even for you," they said, adjusting their oversized glasses. "Not crash," Elena corrected. "Enhance. I'm sponsoring a last-minute addition to the exhibit, a digital installation. My team's coding it now. It'll steal the show." Jamie grinned. "You're terrifying. I like it." The installation was Elena's masterpiece, an interactive display that used AI to project visitors' emotions onto a massive screen, based on their reactions to Caleb's photos. It was bold, innovative, and perfectly aligned with her skills. More importantly, it would force Caleb to confront the emotions he'd ignored, hers included. The night of the exhibit arrived, a crisp autumn evening in Soho. The gallery was a sea of chic attendees, their chatter mingling with the clink of wine glasses. Elena wore a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves, her hair swept up to reveal the strength in her jawline. She felt like a warrior, not a scorned wife. Caleb hadn't seen her yet, but she saw him schmoozing with collectors, his smile as polished as ever. As the crowd gathered for the main event, Elena's installation lit up the room. Faces appeared on the screen: joy, longing, pain drawn from the audience's micro-expressions. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then, a single image flickered, a woman's face, her eyes fierce and heartbroken. It was Elena, her pain laid bare for all to see. The room fell silent. Caleb's face paled. He turned, searching the crowd, and their eyes locked. For the first time, she saw something new in him: guilt, maybe even regret. But Elena wasn't here to forgive. She was here to reclaim her power. She stepped forward, her voice cutting through the silence. "This piece," she said, gesturing to the screen, "is about truth. About what we hide and what we reveal. Enjoy the show." The crowd erupted in applause, but Caleb stood frozen. Elena turned and walked away, her heart pounding but her head high. This was only the beginning. The gallery's lights dimmed as Elena slipped into the crowd, her pulse still racing from the confrontation. She'd planted the seed, and now she'd let it grow. Caleb's exhibit was the talk of the night, but her installation had stolen the narrative. Social media buzzed with clips of the emotional display, her face trending as the mystery woman. She didn't care about the fame, she cared about the message. Caleb had built his success on her pain, and now the world was asking questions. Back at her apartment, Elena kicked off her heels and sank into her couch, her laptop glowing with notifications. Zara had texted, "You're a legend." He's freaking out. Elena smiled faintly but didn't reply. She opened her email instead, finding a message from Jamie Chun. "Caleb's asking about you. Wants to talk. What's your move?" Elena leaned back, considering. Talking to Caleb now would give him a chance to spin his story, to charm his way back into her good graces. No. She'd let him stew. Her plan wasn't about a single night, it was about dismantling the facade he'd built. She typed a quick reply to Jamie. "Tell him I'm busy. He knows where to find me." The next day, Elena threw herself into work, but her mind kept drifting to Caleb. She remembered their first date, a rainy evening at a jazz club in Harlem. He'd leaned close, his British accent soft as he described his dreams of capturing the world's stories through his lens. She'd fallen for his passion, believing it was real. Now, she saw it for what it was: a performance. But performances could be disrupted. At Quantum Labs, her team was buzzing about the exhibit. "That installation was genius," said Malik, her lead coder, his dreadlocks bouncing as he gestured. "You coded that in a week." "With help," Elena said, nodding to her team. "But it's not done. Phase 2 is bigger." Malik raised an eyebrow. "Bigger than upstaging your ex at his own show?" She grinned. "Much bigger." Phase 2 was a long shot, but Elena was nothing if not ambitious. She'd learned that Caleb's exhibit was touring other cities: Miami, Chicago, L.A., and he was pitching it to major investors for a global run. If he succeeded, he'd be untouchable, his betrayal buried under fame and fortune. Elena couldn't let that happen. She needed to expose his lies on a larger stage. She reached out to a contact at a tech conference in Miami, where Caleb's exhibit would stop next. The conference, Tech Trend Summit, was a magnet for innovators and influencers. Elena proposed a panel on Art Meets AI, pitching her installation as the centerpiece. The organizer, a sharp woman named Priya Shah, loved the idea. "This could redefine interactive art," Priya said over Zoom, her eyes gleaming. "You're in." Elena spent the next 2 weeks refining the installation, adding a feature that let users input their own stories, which the AI would weave into the emotional display. She called it Truth in Pixels. It was personal, raw, and impossible to ignore, just like her. Meanwhile, Caleb was unraveling. Jamie reported that he was distracted, missing meetings, his charm fraying at the edges. He tried calling Elena, but she let every call go to voicemail. His messages were polite at first. Can we talk? Then desperate. I didn't mean to hurt you. She deleted them all. Words were cheap. She wanted action. The Miami conference was a whirlwind of energy palm trees swaying outside the convention center. Tech moguls mingling with artists. Elena arrived in a tailored blazer and jeans. Her confidence a shield. Caleb's exhibit was set up in a side hall. His photos stark and beautiful against the white walls. But Elena's installation dominated the main stage. A massive screen pulsing with stories from the crowd love, loss, betrayal. As she tested the setup, Caleb appeared, his suit rumpled, his eyes tired. Elena, he said, his voice low. This has to stop. She didn't look at him, adjusting a setting on her tablet. What has to stop? Caleb. Me living my truth. You're making this personal, he said, stepping closer. I didn't want to hurt you. I needed a way to stay. And you used me, she said, finally meeting his gaze. You made me believe in us. He flinched, but she didn't waver. You don't get to walk away clean, she continued. Not this time. The panel began an hour later, and Elena took the stage with Priya and 2 other speakers. The room was packed, cameras flashing. She spoke about the intersection of art and technology, her voice steady but passionate. Then she introduced Truth in Pixels, letting the audience submit their stories live. The screen lit up with raw, unfiltered emotions: heartbreak, hope, regret. One story caught everyone's attention. I married for love, but he married for status. The crowd murmured, eyes darting to Caleb in the back. Elena didn't look at him. She didn't need to. The truth was out, and it was louder than any apology he could offer. Miami's heat clung to Elena as she left the conference hall, the weight of her triumph tempered by a quiet ache. The crowd had loved Truth in Pixels, and Priya had already pitched a partnership to take it global. But Caleb's face veil, haunted, lingered in her mind. She wasn't cruel. She didn't want to destroy him. She wanted him to feel the cost of his choices, to see her as more than a means to an end. Back at her hotel, Elena scrolled through X, where the conference was trending. Posts praised her installation, but some speculated about the mystery story that had stolen the show. Who's the guy who married for status? Spill the tea. One user wrote. Elena shut her laptop. She didn't want gossip, she wanted closure. Zara called as Elena sipped coffee on her balcony, the ocean glittering below. You're blowing up, Zara said, her voice equal parts pride and worry. But are you okay? That story you put up there, it's you, isn't it? Elena exhaled. Yeah. I needed to say it. You're braver than me, Zara said. What's next? Chicago, Elena replied. His exhibit's there in 2 weeks. I'm not done. Zara laughed. You're a force, Elena. Just don't lose yourself in this. Elena hung up, her mind racing. Chicago was personal. Caleb had proposed to her there, on a snowy night by Lake Michigan. The memory stung, but it also fueled her. She'd use that city to unravel him further, to show the world who he really was. She spent the next week preparing, working late into the night with her team. They upgraded Truth in Pixels to include voice recognition, letting users speak their stories aloud. The AI would analyze tone and emotion, projecting them in real time. It was ambitious, but Elena thrived on ambition. She also reached out to a Chicago-based journalist, Maya Torres, who covered art and social issues. Maya was intrigued by Elena's story and agreed to attend the exhibit, promising a feature in a major outlet. The Chicago event was held in a converted warehouse. Its industrial vibe a stark contrast to Miami's glitz. Caleb's photos lined the walls, each one a study in human connection ironic, given his betrayal. Elena arrived late, slipping in as the crowd gathered. Her installation stood at the center, a beacon of light and sound. People were already speaking into the mics, their voices weaving stories of love and loss. Caleb spotted her immediately, his jaw tightening. He approached, but she raised a hand. "Not now," she said, her voice cold. "You had your chance." He hesitated, then nodded and walked away. She hated how her heart still twisted at the sight of him, but she pushed it down. This wasn't about love, Anna Maria, it was about power. The event began, and Elena took the stage, her presence commanding. She explained the installation, her words laced with purpose. "We all carry stories," she said. "Some we share, some we hide. This is a space for truth." The crowd leaned in, captivated, as voices filled the room. One voice stood out, a woman's, trembling but clear. "I loved him, but he used me to climb higher." The screen flared with her emotion, raw, jagged pain. The crowd gasped, and Maya, in the front row, scribbled furiously. Caleb stood at the back, his hands clenched. Elena met his gaze, unflinching. She'd given him a stage to shine, and now she was using it to expose him. After the event, Maya pulled Elena aside. "That was powerful," she said, her dark eyes intense. "I'm writing about this, but I need your side. Off the record, what's the story?" Elena hesitated. She hadn't planned to go public, but Maya's sincerity disarmed her. "He married me for a green card," she said quietly. "I loved him. He didn't." Maya nodded, no judgment in her eyes. "You're not alone. Let me tell your story carefully. It could help others." Elena agreed, but with conditions, no names, no specifics. She wasn't here to ruin Caleb's life, just to reclaim her own. As she left the warehouse, the Chicago skyline glittering in the distance, she felt lighter. The truth was spreading, and with it, her strength. The Chicago air was sharp with winter's approach, and Elena wrapped her scarf tighter as she walked to her rental car. Maya's article would drop in a week, and the anticipation was a live wire in her veins. She wasn't sure what Caleb would do when it hit a night, deflect, or finally face her. But she was ready. Back in New York, she dove into preparations for the L.A. exhibit, the final stop on Caleb's tour. Her team was exhausted but inspired, pouring their energy into truth in pixels. They added a new feature, a memory bank that stored anonymized stories, creating a collective narrative of human experience. Elena saw it as a monument to resilience, hers and others. Zara invited her to dinner at a cozy Brooklyn bistro, a rare break from the chaos. Over dim sum, Zara studied her. "You look different," she said. "Lighter, maybe." "I'm finding my way," Elena admitted. "This isn't just about Caleb anymore. It's about what I can build." Zara smiled. "That's my girl. But be careful. He's not going to take this lying down." Zara was right. The next morning, Elena woke to a voicemail from Caleb. His voice was raw, almost broken. "Elena, I saw the Chicago footage. I know what you're doing. Can we please talk? I messed up." She deleted the message, but it lingered. Part of her wanted to hear him out, to see if he'd changed. But she'd learned the hard way that Caleb's words were a trap. Instead, she focused on L.A. She'd partnered with a local queer collective, Spectrum, to host a community event alongside the exhibit. They'd showcase stories from marginalized voices, amplifying the installation's impact. The L.A. event was a spectacle held in a sprawling venue in West Hollywood, with Caleb's photos competing against a backdrop of vibrant street art. Elena arrived in a sleek black jumpsuit, her confidence unshakable. Spectrum's leader, a non-binary artist named Riley Diaz, greeted her warmly. "Your work's changing the game," Riley said, their piercings glinting under the lights. "This is bigger than one story." Elena nodded. "That's the point." The installation was a hit, the crowd entranced by the voices and faces on the screen. But the real moment came when Riley took the mic, sharing their own story of betrayal and survival. The audience was silent, then erupted in applause. Elena felt a swell of pride not just for herself, but for the community she was helping amplify. Caleb approached her later, his face drawn. "You're winning," he said quietly. "Is that what you wanted?" "No," she said, her voice steady. "I wanted you to see me. Really see me." He looked away, his jaw tight. "I did love you, Elena. I got lost." She shook her head. "You didn't get lost. You chose your path. Now live with it." As she walked away, she felt the weight of his gaze. But she didn't look back. The L.A. night was alive with possibility, and she was ready for what came next. Maya's article hit like a tidal wave, published in a major outlet with a headline that cut deep: Art, AI, and the Cost of Betrayal. It didn't name Caleb, but the details were unmistakable. Social media exploded, with users piecing together the story. Caleb's exhibit was still a success, but the narrative had shifted. He was no longer just the visionary photographer, was the man who'd broken a heart for status. Elena read the article in her Brooklyn apartment, her coffee growing cold. Maya had woven her story with others, creating a tapestry of resilience. It wasn't just about her pain. It was about the strength to rise above it. She felt exposed but empowered, like she'd shed a skin she no longer needed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jamie Chun. "Caleb's spiraling. He's canceled interviews. You okay?" Elena typed back, "I'm good. Thanks for checking." She meant it. The ache was still there, but it was quieter now, drowned out by her purpose. She threw herself into the next phase, turning Truth in Pixels into a standalone project. She pitched it to investors, framing it as a platform for storytelling and healing. The response was overwhelming. A venture capitalist, Lena Kim, offered seed funding, impressed by the L.A. event. "This could be huge," Lena said over coffee in Manhattan. "Not just art, but therapy, community, impact." Elena's vision was coming to life, but Caleb wasn't done. He showed up at her office unannounced, his eyes bloodshot. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I was selfish. I didn't see you, not really." She stood, arms crossed. "You saw what you wanted to see. A ticket to your dreams." He flinched. "I know I hurt you, but I'm losing everything now. Isn't that enough?" "No," she said, her voice calm but firm. "It's not about you losing. It's about me winning." He left without another word, and Elena felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. She didn't hate him, she pitied him. But pity wouldn't stop her. The next month was a blur of meetings and coding sessions. Truth in Pixels was evolving into an app, with Spectrum and other collectives signing on as partners. Elena was building something bigger than her pain, something that could change lives. But Caleb's shadow lingered. She heard he'd pulled out of the global tour, citing personal reasons. Part of her wondered if he'd finally face himself. Spring 2024 brought new energy to New York, and Elena felt it in her bones. Truth in Pixels was gaining traction, with a beta launch planned for summer. She was working with Riley and Jamie to curate stories from queer communities, ensuring the app amplified voices that were often silenced. It was healing work, but it demanded everything: her time, her focus, her heart. One evening, as she walked through Central Park, her phone buzzed. It was Caleb, asking to meet. Against her better judgment, she agreed. They met at a quiet cafe in the West Village, the kind of place they used to love. He looked different, thinner, less polished, his charm replaced by something raw. "I'm leaving New York," he said, stirring his coffee. "I've lost my sponsors. The exhibit's done." Elena nodded, unsure what to feel. "What's next for you?" He shrugged. "I don't know. I thought I had it all figured out. But I was wrong. About a lot." She waited, sensing he had more to say. He leaned forward, his voice low. "I didn't just marry you for the green card, Elena. I loved you. I still do. But I was too weak to choose you over my ambition." Her heart clenched, but she kept her face neutral. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve to know," he said. "And because I'm trying to be better." She studied him, searching for the lie. But all she saw was a man stripped bare, his regrets laid out like an offering. It wasn't enough to undo the past, but it was something. "I hope you find what you're looking for," she said finally. "But it won't be with me." He nodded, tears in his eyes. "I know." She left the cafe, the spring air cool against her skin. For the first time, she felt free, not just from Caleb, but from the weight of her anger. She'd used her mind, her skill, her heart to rebuild herself. And she wasn't done. The beta launch of Truth in Pixels was a triumph, held at a Brooklyn rooftop venue with the Manhattan skyline as a backdrop. Elena stood before a diverse crowd: tech innovators, artists, activists, her voice steady as she unveiled the app. "This is for everyone who's been silenced," she said. "Your stories matter. Your truth matters." The app was a hit, with thousands of downloads in the first week. Stories poured in: queer youth finding acceptance, immigrants reclaiming their narratives, survivors of betrayal building new lives. Elena read each one, her heart swelling. She'd turned her pain into purpose, and it was bigger than she'd ever imagined. Caleb sent her a letter a month later, handwritten, postmarked from London. "I'm starting over," he wrote. "I'm trying to be the man you deserved. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like." She read it once, then tucked it away. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was closure. Zara threw a celebratory dinner at her apartment, the table crowded with friends: Jamie, Riley, Malik, and others who'd become Elena's chosen family. To Elena, Zara toasted, raising her glass. The woman who turned heartbreak into art. Elena smiled, her eyes shining. "To Truth," she said. As the night wound down, she stepped onto Zara's balcony, the city alive below. She thought of Caleb, of the love she'd lost, and the strength she'd found. He'd begged for a love he'd thrown away, but she didn't need his regret. She'd built something better: her own legacy, her own heart. And it was enough.